Chapter 1 The Sun Also Surprises by Kudzuhaiku. Cadance, I'm lonely. Cadance looked at her aunt and watched as Princess Celestia became Celestia, her mask breaking and a torrent of emotions became visible upon her face. Cadance's wings fluttered at her sides and she sucked in a deep breath as she tried to withhold her own reaction, which she feared would overwhelm her. Cadance, I am so very lonely, but I don't know if I can endure going through love again. I don't know what to do. I don't want to be hurt and I don't want to hurt somepony else, but my heart doesn't wish to listen to my own reason or logic. I cannot make this ache go away. Cadance, who was a very practical pony, took a very practical approach to dealing with this. She was, after all, the Princess of Love. So, Auntie, do you have some pony in mind? Any pony that catches your eye? No. Celestia shook her head and Cadance's ears perked at the lone syllable uttered by her aunt. Cadance, this is very difficult for me. I don't know that I should go through with this. Every time I have fallen in love, it has ended in heartbreak or disaster. Celestia heaved a worn-out sigh and her ears drooped down. So much is expected of me. Many are the burdens I am expected to carry. And I do it alone. Cadance, dear, sometimes I wonder how much longer I can keep going. I have grown weary. I see. Cadance's lips pursed into a thoughtful pucker. So you need something serious, not a fling, Cadance. And it needs to be with some pony that understands both duty and sacrifice. This one is going to be a tough one, but I think I can handle this new case. Cadance gave her aunt a winning smile. So I am a case now? Celestia asked, her ears standing back up. Well, Cadance considered her words carefully, she was the Princess of Love. This is what she did. She helped ponies find the love of their lives. She helped ponies with difficult or complicated needs find love. Cadance made love happen. Cadance searched high and low until she found the pony that she knew was a good potential match to be somepony's most special somepony. She looked at her aunt and was unable to stop a smile from spreading over her muzzle. Her aunt was going to be her most difficult case ever, no doubt about that. Cadance. I was thinking, Cadance replied, and trying to figure out a gentle answer. Of course you are a case. Auntie, this is what I do. I find love where there seems to be no love to be found. The matches I make are very nearly perfect. That worries me, Celestia admitted in a low, husky voice that was now thick with emotion. Cadance, darling, if you find me the love of my life and I have to watch them grow old, I do not think I could bear it. This is a bad idea and I wish I hadn't said anything. I should be going. Sit down, Cadance commanded as Celestia rose from the table where the two had been sitting. When Celestia did not sit, Cadance's brows furrowed. Sit down. This time there was an unmistakable hardness in her voice and she rapped upon the edge of the table with her hoof. Like a scolded filly, Celestia sat down, biting and chewing upon her lower lip. Auntie, I hate to be the one who says this, but it is better to have loved and lost. Cadance, you have loved but never lost. Do not lecture me. Celestia's eyes narrowed and for a moment, anger burned in her eyes like two live coals. You have no idea what loss is like, but one day, you will. Come to me then and share your cheerful, optimistic platitudes. Fair enough, Cadance replied. Still seeing some traces of anger in her aunt, Cadance changed the subject a bit. Are you willing to trust in my processes? I do things in a different way. I bring ponies together in such a way that it allows them to get to know the pony on the inside without the outside distractions getting in the way. My methods are peculiar, but they work. I have a very high success rating and you would need to subject yourself to how I do things. I have long wondered how you do what you do, Celestia said as her anger melted away and her ruffled feathers smoothed out. She took a deep breath, her barrel expanded, and she slumped down in a very uncharacteristic slouch. Cadance, I'm scared. Love is scary. Cadance's head bobbed in agreement. Shining Armor says he would rather go to war than try to understand love and its many pitfalls. Thankfully, I made it easy on him. Cadance laughed and let out an unprincess-like snort. Flurry Heart has made things difficult though. Funny how something so simple can become so complicated. The leftover dishes on the table clattered and clanked as Celestia leaned over and propped herself up on the edge of the table, resting her forelegs upon the sheer, silken tablecloth. She looked at Cadance, her eyes wide with worry, and for just a brief moment, it was easy to forget that Celestia was thousands of years old because she looked like a very confused filly that feared the oncoming status of adulthood. I get rid of the distractions that keep us from our love, Cadance began, becoming serious. I have a very methodical approach and every time I do this, I refine the process. Twilight has been a big help. The toughest part is finding the object of affection, but it gets easier. The first meeting, I use blindfolds and voice-changing magic. I want the two prospects to get to know the ponies on the inside. I don't want them to see a Pegasus, or a unicorn, or an earth pony, or in this case, an alicorn. I don't want them distracted by things like pelt color or the curliness of somepony's mane. By having them blinded and making them unrecognizable, I can get them to talk and be open. A pony can be quite chatty when they feel anonymous. I watch this meeting and my love sense tells me everything I need to know. Afterwards, I set up more encounters, more meetings, all of them blind and disguised. Each encounter, or date if you wish to call them that, introduces new elements. I have found that ponies can actually fall in love during this very early phase. Eventually, the big reveal comes along. Ever had it go spectacularly wrong? Celestia asked. Of course, Cadance responded without skipping a beat or having a moment's hesitation. But I've also had it go horribly wrong and then go wonderfully right with some couples counseling. The very worst cases of it going wrong happened because some pony wasn't completely honest with me during the early stages when I ask a bunch of questions. They brought it upon themselves. Cadance's eyes narrowed and she fell silent to give her words time to sink in. Understood, Celestia replied, cottoning onto Cadance's words. I shall strive to be open and honest. Failure to do so means I get to go to your sister to find out what I need to know. There was no trace of mirth or laughter in Cadance's voice, her eyes were hard and flinty. She stared into her aunt's eyes and did not turn away. I warn you, Auntie, I am the alicorn of love. I take what I do very seriously. I know how you can be. I know your moods. I know how you love to mislead and tease. I demand that you treat this with the seriousness it deserves. Of course, Cadance. Celestia let out a tiny sigh and give her niece a nod. I give you my word as your aunt, I will behave myself. Celestia extended one golden shod hoof, folded her foreleg, and tapped herself over her own heart. Thank you, Cadance replied. One eyebrow arched. I will conduct my interview with you this evening. Prepare yourself. I mean that, prepare yourself. I shall return after the sun sets and Flurry has been put to bed. I have enjoyed our tea time together. I am positive that poor Shining is now a frazzled mess having been left alone with both Twilight and Flurry for the past few hours. Unable to help herself, Celestia laughed and nodded her head in agreement. She chuckled for several long moments, never once taking her eyes off of her niece. Cadance had grown up. Cadance was now matronly and had such a gentle, but regal bearing. Cadance was the Empress and she very much acted the part. She was trusting Cadance with her fragile heart. She felt a gushing rush of gratitude. Cadance, thank you, Celestia said in a husky, raspy voice made thick with emotion. Don't mention it, Cadance replied, you deserve to be happy and have love just like any pony else. Cadance smiled. Be ready. Tonight. After sundown. After Flurry Heart is tucked into bed, or tied into bed, whichever needs to happen, I shall return. Celestia, who felt a small, fragile spark of hope, nodded. I shall be waiting. Princess Celestia felt as though she was in her hundreds once more. She paced through her chambers, nervous, her heart thudding and her frogs sweating. She could not help but feel that she had made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and that all of this would end in tears. When Cadance arrived, Celestia was tempted to call the whole thing off. She refused to admit it, but Celestia was terrified. Her last love had been disastrous and had ended in horrendous heartache. Annoyed by the sounds they made, Celestia flung off her golden shoes. One of them she kicked off a little too hard and it clattered against the wall. Frustrated, angry, scared, she tore the regalia from her neck and hurled it at a pile of cushions while puffing out her cheeks in a flustered huff. The crown was also chucked unceremoniously into the pile of cushions. Sometimes, she hated the damnable thing. It was tacky, it was gaudy, and in moments of temper, she had a tendency to cause gold to melt. Of course, in moments of severe temper, even the rocks melted, which was why it was so important to be patient and serene. Little ponies could melt too. Celestia was distracted by a knock at her door. She froze, wide-eyed, and stared at the door. Her mouth opened and she wanted to invite Cadance inside, but no words would come out, only a squeak. Several times did Celestia try to speak and no words came forth. Finally, the door opened and Celestia was spared from having to say anything. Cadance stood in the doorway, looking very professional. She was holding a thick notebook, a clipboard, and an ornate ink pen that was shockingly pink. Celestia stared as Cadance looked around the room and she knew that Cadance could see the kicked-off shoes, regalia, and crown. One of Cadance's eyebrows arched and Celestia suddenly felt very guilty without being able to say why. Oh my, you look frazzled. Cadance spoke with the voice of a foal-sitter or a schoolmarm. She blinked a few times, clucked her tongue, and then in a voice of gentle command, Cadance said, "Now sit down, make yourself comfortable, and prepare to be honest." Blinking, Celestia tried to make herself comfortable on the pile of cushions and something stabbed her in her perfect, plush white backside. She grunted, a most unprincess-like sound, and after a moment of fidgeting, she pulled her crown out from beneath her and hurled it across the room again. It clanged when it hit the wall and clattered down to the marble floor. Turning her head, she saw that Cadance had one eye squinted at her in disapproval. Was this what it was like for the little ponies when she scolded them or let them know she disapproved of their actions? This was awful. Celestia bore the full brunt of the alicorn gaze of shame and she felt like melting into the floor, never to be seen again. Cadance was good at it too, a little too good. Celestia's lessons had paid off a little too well. Poor shining armor, he succumbed during bath time. Twilight fell not too long after. I thought I was doomed, but Twilight Velvet came to the rescue. She got Flurry Heart into bed and Spike sang her to sleep. Nightlight did that thing he does with the lights that makes little foals sleepy. Cadance sighed, a weary sound, and then laughed. Twilight Velvet got to tuck both of her grown-up foals into bed and we had a good laugh about it. She has an amazing amount of endurance for a mare her age. Cadance blinked a few times, pulled out her pen, and opened her notebook. The pink alicorn cleared her throat, let out a polite cough, and pulled out a petite pair of reading glasses. She settled them on her muzzle, peered through them to focus her eyes, and then turned her attention upon Celestia. So, let's get started. Sexual preferences. Male or female? Cadance gave Celestia a patient smile and waited. Cadance, you know me. Male, of course. There was an annoyed whicker from Cadance. Honesty, you are required to be honest. I don't know what you mean, Celestia said in a low, stern voice that held a hint of anger. Look, let's get this over with. I know all about the feelings you had for Twilight and still sometimes have. Cadance's eyes narrowed. You've had feelings for other females as well. Cadance. Honesty. Cadance barked in a voice forceful enough to make the knickknacks on a nearby shelf rattle. This will not work if you are not honest. Don't you lie to me, that's insulting, Auntie. Yes, there were times when I had certain fantasies about Twilight. Celestia hung her head. But I would never act upon them. She was my student, my pupil, while I did think about it, I would never act upon it. Doing so would be immoral and unethical. Celestia paused and closed her eyes for a moment. Though sometimes I do wonder what might have been. Now, I will ask again. Male or female? Cadance's lips contorted into a frustrated moue and she waited for an honest reply from her aunt. A stallion, Celestia replied in a low voice that was almost a squeak. I want somepony masculine and maybe just a little bit commanding, but not in a bad way. Somepony brave enough to be my equal. Somepony I can relax my guard around and know that they will protect me. Somepony that will look after my needs. Cadance nodded as her pen scratched over the notebook page she was writing in. Somepony who will bring out the best in me, Celestia continued, somepony that will inspire all of my best qualities. Somepony you can have a teacher-student relationship with, Cadance said. No, Cadance, not that, Celestia shook her head. Why not? Cadance asked as both of her ears perked to attention. You are at your best when you are a teacher. You just admitted that you had feelings for Twilight. You will be at your most comfortable and your most open when you are doing what you do best. And you, Auntie, you are a teacher. So you need a student that it is safe to be a little naughty with, Cadance. Celestia's mouth dropped open in shock. I'm not saying that you need to make them stay after class so you can paddle them for being a bad pony, not unless you want to, and you should want to, it's fun. Cadance gave her aunt a wink and then continued to write stuff down in her notebook. Celestia knew that her niece enjoyed a healthy love life, but Celestia had never given it much thought. Flurry Heart existed because Cadance and Shining Armor spent a great deal of time expressing physical love. But Celestia had never really thought about it. She had tried to avoid thinking about it. But now she found herself wondering who had paddled who had been the teacher and who had been the student. Could Cadance still squeeze into her school filly outfit? Was Shining Armor capable of actually paddling the love of his life, or was it just gentle love taps done in play? We take turns, Cadance said with a chuckle, and she grinned when she saw her aunt's face contort in discomfort. How am I to understand the complex needs and loves of others if I do not experiment in those things myself? Flabbergasted, Celestia let out a shocked whinny in response to Cadance's words. Okay, Auntie, deep breaths, and start telling me things you like, Cadance said to Celestia as she kicked out her legs and got comfortable upon the sofa. Don't be shy. Be open, be honest, help me so I can help you. I like rain and rain clouds, Celestia blurted out, and she was surprised by the ease at which the words had sprang from her lips. I've always felt that a good thunderstorm makes one appreciate the sunshine even more. I've always liked storm clouds. I like the colors. I like when the sun shines through storm clouds, it somehow always looks brighter when shining through a fluffy gray cloud. Those moments when rays of light go piercing through the dark clouds like spears of sunshine, Celestia's words trailed off. This is good. This helps me to understand you. Cadance's pen continued to scratch over the page she wrote upon in her notebook. My aunt is a hopeless romantic, Cadance muttered in a low voice. I like jumping in mud puddles, I know. Cadance's pen stopped for a moment while she looked at her aunt. You were very surprised when I found you and joined you. That was one of the happiest moments of my foalhood. We jumped in puddles together and we were both so happy. I treasure that memory. So do I, Cadance, so do I. So few ponies get to see me as I really am. I once tried jumping into a mud puddle around Twilight, but she just lectured me about the mess. A relaxed smile spread over Celestia's muzzle. Twilight is not a mud puddle jumper. Neither is Shining Armor, Cadance said, sharing a secret with her aunt. Twilight Velvet raised them right, both mares said in unison. Blinking, Cadance laughed and Celestia found herself relaxing a little bit more. She felt some of the tension in her muscles easing away and her frogs didn't feel so sweaty. She felt her mood improving. Everything was going well. How do you feel about foals? Cadance asked. Right away, Celestia felt her frogs start sweating again. She gulped, not expecting this question. She felt the muscles in her neck clench up and it was suddenly difficult to breathe. She let out a little snort and then said, Cadance, that is very complicated. Honesty, Cadance said in a gentle voice. Celestia sighed, knowing that there was no way of getting out of this. Cadance, I am a teacher for a reason. I satisfy my innermost maternal needs vicariously by looking after the foals of others. Celestia took a deep breath. I like foals. I like rain clouds, I like stomping in puddles, and I like foals. They're filled with so much hope and potential. Cadance peered at Celestia over the top edge of her glasses. Auntie, it is no longer the dark old days. Things are different now. You don't have to worry so much about nobles squabbling for power and trying to poison their rivals. Things are safer now. If you really wanted foals of your own, you should have some. I know it's complicated, and I know that it will end in an aching heart someday, but you should at least try. Cadance. I don't know. Cadance, I lived through some very dark times. The things I have seen are like storm clouds. Sure, it got dark for a while, but the sun shone through and now, the sun feels so much brighter after it punched through all those dark clouds. Doesn't it feel good? Isn't it pretty? Cadance gave her aunt a reassuring smile. Celestia sat there with a blank look upon her face, wondering when Cadance had become so wise. It wasn't very long ago it seemed that Celestia had asked Cadance if she wanted to foal sit a very troubled little filly that asked far too many difficult questions. I would like to have foals, if I found the right stallion who was willing to settle down. Celestia felt her face grow warm and she had no idea how pink she was turning. From the neck up, she was starting to look a bit like Cadance. So much trust involved, Cadance said in a low, serious voice. You have to trust in your mate. You have to trust in your little ponies. You have to trust in their goodness and hope that they do no harm. Cadance cleared her throat. I thought I trusted Shining. I really thought I trusted him. We went through a lot of sexual experimentation together and I just sort of assumed that I trusted him. But then I got pregnant and I discovered just how much I trusted Shining Armor. I trust him with Flurry Heart, the thing most precious and dear to my heart. He's so patient, gentle, and kind. Celestia felt her eyes moisten as she listened to Cadance baring her heart. She felt a tightness in her throat. She was learning things about Cadance, shocking things, good things. She was getting to know Cadance as a mare, and not just as a student or as the Empress of the Crystal Empire. Even if this whole experience came to naught, Celestia took comfort in the idea that this foolish idea of hers had brought her and Cadance closer together. A family might be nice. Celestia sighed. The truth is, I'm not needed as much as I once was. Twilight has streamlined the government. Luna deals with her share of the political workload. I've had more free time than I've had in centuries. I have ponies I can trust looking after my interests. The truth is, I could take more time for myself and I just don't. I don't know why. Celestia blinked, surprised by her own honesty. She really didn't know why. Habit. Routine. Was she really old, stubborn, and set in her ways? She didn't know. Perhaps it was time for a change. She eyed Cadance and channeled her anxious energy by gnawing upon her lip. Yes. Cadance asked, anticipating some question from her aunt. I want some pony brave enough to lure me out of my comfort zone, Celestia said. Cadance smiled. That can be arranged, I'm sure. He needs to be romantic, Celestia added. That goes without saying, Cadance replied. Celestia gnawed upon her lip once more and agonized over what she wanted to say next. She reminded herself that Cadance was a grown mare and the alicorn of love. What Celestia wanted was delightfully dirty, but she had her reasons. Cadance. Yes. I know how this might sound, but this goes back to me being a teacher. Yes. Cadance's eyebrow arched in curiosity. I want a virgin auntie. No, hear me out, Cadance. Celestia paused and waited for Cadance's giggles to subside, and she felt her own throat go dry. When Cadance's giggles eased into a few snorty chortles, Celestia continued. I'm old and I'm set in my ways. I don't want a lover with a lot of bad sexual habits. I don't want somepony that I'm going to have to explain to how to do the job right and have to tell them why everything they are currently doing is wrong. I want somepony young, eager, but also willing to learn. I want that youthful enthusiasm of a student who wants to be in school. Cadance, I understand, Cadance said in a serious, solemn voice. I understand completely. You want to give one lucky pony the most magical and most wonderful educational experience of a lifetime. Yes, I suppose I do, Celestia admitted. Am I being unreasonable or asking for too much? No, Cadance replied, shaking her head. I don't think so. Now, tell me more about yourself so that I might be able to help you. We've broken the ice and you're starting to become a little more comfortable with the process. Prepare yourself, Auntie, for now we talk about the really embarrassing and awkward stuff. Swallowing a huge lump that just appeared in her throat, Princess Celestia felt very afraid, but she also felt ready for the challenge. So took a deep breath and prepared to tell Cadance everything she could so Cadance would be able to help. Plus, it would be nice to talk to somepony other than Luna about these things. Luna was a tease.